Welcome to the MEF2C Cast, a podcast dedicated to educating, supporting, and building community around MEF2C haploinsufficiency syndrome.
The MEF2 Cast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Views expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily of the podcast or its sponsors. This is not medical advice. Consult a healthcare professional for medical concerns.
Alrighty, hi everybody. Welcome to the MEF2C Cast. We are here with Lauren and Kaycee, who are PTs, and Tyler, who is an OT. They are Margo, a little girl with MCHS's a therapy team. How are you guys today?
Good.
Good. And also, just for our audience, Leo had one of those parties that people with MCHS are so famous for in the middle of the night last night. Haley was up all night dealing with that, so she is in bed. She's sorry she couldn't make it, but if anybody's curious, that's why it's just me tonight. But I guess whoever can start first, can you guys talk a little bit about how you met Margo and sort of all came together and as her care team?
Yeah. So it initially started with me. Margo came in for initial evaluation, which I don't know if you know a lot about this, but whenever PTs get a prescription or whatever from the doctor, it just says evaluate and treat as indicated. We don't really get a ton of information about what the kiddo's going through, what they look like, how old they are, anything like that. It just says to see them. And I know that that's hard on families to have to tell the same story over and over and over again. So we always try to take that into consideration. Let me not squirrel off, but Margo came around December of last year and I saw her. I was like, oh, yeah, we need to get going. She's 7 months old. Let's go 2 times a week. I contacted Kacee. I was like, hey, Kacee, can you see this kiddo on Saturday? I'll see this kiddo during the week. Kacee has extra credentialing, which I thought would have been great for Margo specifically. And then that kind of spun us into, I was like, okay, we also need to get OT going. So then I started hounding Tyler to try to get her on her schedule.
Yeah, awesome. So what experiences do each of you had? Why do you think you guys are such a good fit for Margo?
Well, that's a loaded question. I don't know if it's any therapist that's better than another, and whether you believe in higher powers or what your faith might be or whatever. We all just kind of met perfectly together and it just worked. Started supporting them as a family pretty immediately. We were there for whatever they needed, whether it was emotional support, just getting them to help. And it's worked. We all communicate well with each other.
Yeah, and I think it's important to consider we all started working with her before her diagnosis.
Mhm.
So our team had already been established. We had already built the relationship with the parents, and it didn't change anything once she got her diagnosis because we were like, okay, we're already working on X, Y, and Z that goes with that diagnosis.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So can you talk about a little bit where Margo was when you guys met her and sort of how she's progressed to today?
Yeah. So whenever I first met Margo, she couldn't really hold her head up. We were functioning on whenever you come up with like scoring and all that kind of stuff. It's about a 1 month old. She didn't have quite good head control. There was no trunk involvement. And when I met her, she was 7 months, like I said. At a 7 month baby, you really want to start to see them sitting up, reaching for things outside of their basic support, transitioning into crawling. And she didn't even have the foundation for that. So then I was like, all right, we need to get the ball rolling. And so that's why I recommended 2 times a week.
And then I believe when Lauren had me start, she was like, she's not really visually tracking, just some like things I think OT would specifically work on to help us. And I also did her initial evaluation and um it was about less than a month as well. We didn't get pretty far into the motor assessment we did, and she wasn't reaching. She wasn't mainly fisted. So OT, we do a lot with the hands and the fine motor skills. She wasn't really opening or closing voluntarily. She wasn't tracking items or grasping for toys, showing interest in toys yet. So that's kind of where I started at her baseline with her.
That's where like a lot of people get, sorry, Kacee, if you were going to go, but
Okay.
That's where a lot of people get confused with OT as well as, you think of these kids that are overstimulated, right? Like they're overstimulated and they're bouncing off the walls. I need my OT around to like calm them down. Whereas I saw Margot and I was like, I need somebody that's gonna amp her up. Like I need her to get moving and get excited about moving, get going, wanting to go. And like now she's so much fun to watch because now Tyler, you take it away because
Yeah, so when we think about, like, engaging with our environment, we want to do that on an age-appropriate level. So when I first started with Margot, she was not engaging with her environment as much versus now we're looking at people and objects and things that are moving around us. We're scratching at things and grasping things to try and feel how that feels on our hands.
We tickle her and she laughs now.
Yeah, she'll giggle, she'll laugh, and we didn't see any of that when we first started with her. She was just like a calm baby, so then you would think, "Oh, like, she's a good baby because she's not fussy, she's not easily upset by things," but she should be.
Mhm.
That's age appropriate.
And I mean, now from a gross motor standpoint, I've kind of taken her over since Lauren left me. But now, I've tried to like implement just recently, like some E-stem with her, and some other techniques. And I don't want to say sitting is 100% mastered, but we're getting pretty close.
we're
And with
close.
OT's help, like she's propping now on her hands when she sits.
Yeah, not just those close fists like she was doing.
She now rolls independently.
That girl loved her mom now.
Step number 1, yes.
How old I don't think we ever actually said this during the recording. How old is
She
Margot?
turned she turned 1 in April,
Okay, gotcha. So, how old was she when you started working with her?
7 months. So,
Okay, gotcha.
but we really didn't really get going, so I evaluated Margot, and then, like, they went out of town for a month. So was
Uh,
like, rats. I was calling her. She was in Mexico. I was like, "Hey, Margo, like, let's. What are you doing?" And Camilla was like sending me videos of her and like her sitting up and how they were working on her head control, like even down there. But she really didn't get like the intensive therapy services starting until like mid January.
Yeah, because I started last, and I started in February.
Yeah, so we've really only been going about like 6 months.
I mean, that's great that you've been able to make all that progress in a few months. So let's get into first of all, how I'm assuming all of you have treated patients with just sort of general autism before. So how is Margot similar to more there is no typical autistic person, but more typical autistic people, and how is she different?
I don't know if it
Yeah, so every kid, like you said, is every kid is different.
Mm,
You know, autism is really not diagnosed until 2, 3 years of age, and I really feel like there the thing about autism, it kinda gets it's like this umbrella term, right? It's lumped into we don't really know what's going on, let's just call it autism. So, we try we try to treat the child and not treat the diagnosis. I know that
mm,
sounds but exactly what Tyler was saying earlier was the main reason why, is we started working with Margot before she was diagnosed, and we knew we needed all these things, but even once she got the diagnosis of what was going on behind the scenes, it didn't change any course of our treatment. It just gave us more facts. That's about it.
sure.
And I will say, I feel as though maybe 75% at a minimum of my caseload right now is autism. And the similarity that I can find between those two is processing sensory information different. So I feel what where we disconnect from autism is that social and communication component. That's one of the groundworks for that diagnosis. So to say I don't see her socially interacting or communicating her needs, I see that every time I'm with her. She will grunt and whine when she doesn't want to do what we want to do. She will look towards mom or watch her sister running around in the background and get her more engaged in her environment and wanting to like laugh at what's going on. And if I like tickle her a little bit or make eye contact with her, she'll smile back. And you may not see that in a child with autism because they're not interested in the social interactions.
Yeah.
So the main component is how are we processing sensory information?
I just don't know that it's quite fair to compare her, even though she has a diagnosis. I don't know that it's necessarily appropriate to compare her, at least right now at her age, to autistic kids. I feel like the autism diagnosis is just kind of handed out these days to everybody, and I don't know.
Well, yeah, depending on who you talk to, MCHS can be seen as a subset of autism. It's what they would qualify as autism plus.
Mhm.
So, I think there is a lot of overlap in symptoms, and also, like, it's sort of when something's this rare, it's sort of the closest thing that we have.
Mhm.
And also an autism diagnosis, particularly here in the US, is really beneficial for shouldn't say beneficial, but it allows people to access a lot of resources they
Mhm.
might not
And I understand that.
otherwise be able to access.
Yeah.
But I do agree with your point and what Lauren said earlier about that autism is a really broad term, and sometimes it does feel like I brought this up before on the show, but there's a concept in taxonomy, which is like the classification of living things, called a junk drawer taxa, which is like there's a category where sorry, there'll be like a category of, say, like, snakes, where it's like, oh, we don't know what to do with this. We'll just put it in there and we'll sort it all out later. And that's sort of what it feels like autism falls into at times.
Yeah, and that leads me to, like, insurance and how insurance views because, everybody's kinda educated now on the term autism, right? You don't really meet anybody in Kroger that doesn't know what an autism is. They
Mm,
may not know the actual definition of autism, but they have heard it at least
mm,
at a point
mm,
in their life, you know what I mean? So, like, how many people really know what, MEF2C, MCHS, whatever? You really get down to the nitty-gritty, how many people have heard that? That's
mm,
exactly what you and Haley are out here doing, is educating people. And,
mm,
the insurance companies, they really haven't heard it either. So that's the sad part about it is we have to diagnose people with rare genetic disorders. We have to diagnose them with autism in order to get insurance to cover anything because insurance is not educated in a rare genetic disorder.
mm,
So it's sad.
You know, I have a brother who's autistic, and you look at my brother, and he is autistic, right? But then, you have kids, you have so many kids on your caseload that have Down syndrome, but they also have an autism diagnosis as well. Well, in my head, you have communication deficits because you have Down syndrome, not because you are truly autistic. And I totally understand the benefit. It is unfortunate that most insurances won't cover. I had a kid with a Charcot-Marie tooth, some sort of genetic condition. Insurance wouldn't cover him even though he needed it. But then you have other kiddos where it's like if you don't put the autism diagnosis first, they're not going to approve services.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, and there's a lot of variability between MCHS kids too. Like, I would say Leo does have a lot of those social deficits.
Mhm.
They've improved a lot as he's gotten older, but when he was Margo's age, I mean, he would look literally through people, especially other kids his age, literally like they weren't even in the room. Like,
Mhm.
would crawl over them, try to crawl through them to get to things, like, had no concept that they were
Was
there at
that a
all.
visual impairment, or do you think that it was, I didn't want to see you? You know what I mean? Like, I don't recognize anything,
You
and I don't
know,
see it around you versus I genuinely didn't see you.
I'm not sure. It seems intuitively to me to be some sort of social, like, just not recognizing that person as a person. But we just recently learned about, like, I don't know if you guys know about CVI, which for our audience is cerebral visual impairment, and sort of those visual aspects of that too. So,
Mhm.
that's something the closest. I think there's a CVI person in Pittsburgh, maybe, but I can't remember.
There are specific vision therapists.
Yeah, yeah, but getting someone to actually diagnose that is few and far between. But my point is that we just recently started to learn more about that visual aspect of things, so I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that
Um,
that would be interesting. That would be my
mm,
tell-all. Is this kind of something that's a visual impairment, like you said, is this the CBI, or is this because,
mm,
like, I just don't recognize anybody's in the room?
Yeah, similar to like where Margot started versus where she's at now. She wasn't visually tracking when she started, but once she started to get those skills, she started interacting with her parents more,
mm,
interacting with her because she had the motor skills in her eyes to find them in the room. And now she's like, okay, I feel comfort when I look at you, or I feel like really excited when I watch my sister zooming around the room. Like you can see her get a little bit more excited. And now that she has those skills to like use her eyes in that functional social way, she is showing those social skills.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing that's been really eye-opening about this whole journey we've been on with Leo is, like, when someone says motor skills, like, before, I would think about basically, like, hand-eye coordination and, like, foot coordination, but literally everything is motor skills, like, speech deficits, could be due to motor skills. Your vocal cords are muscles, so things like the eye tracking and stuff, so it gets really difficult to tease all those things apart, as I'm sure you guys all know
Others,
much
especially
better than me.
well,
Yeah.
that's why physical therapy doesn't cover all the things that
Mm,
OTs cover, and, there is some overlap and things like that, but I really feel like that's the importance of having an interdisciplinary approach,
Mhm.
because I couldn't be your vision therapist. You definitely don't want me being your speech therapist. Your kid's gonna say y'all and ain't and and just other words, so
mhm.
you don't want me being your speech therapist, but yeah. So I just feel like that's
Yeah.
important.
Well, let's get into some of the actual interventions that you guys have done with Margo. Whoever wants to can start and just sort of talk about some of the things that you think have been most beneficial for her.
Lauren, do you kinda wanna start where you're at, and then I can kinda talk about what we're doing now or where you started with her?
Yeah, I mean, I can start with, with that we initially started with head control. So we really wanted to get head control going. So we really did a lot of physio ball work, getting her up on a physio ball, which includes her trunk control,
Mhm.
lots of tummy time, which she did not appreciate that despite her cute little self being on her tummy. She was very advocating that she did not enjoy that.
Mhm.
But and then Kacee really helped with her DMI techniques. Kacee, if you want to talk about that part, like that's what really got us into our head and trunk control.
Yeah. Um, so more recently, we've started some DMI techniques.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to back up, because almost every family we've talked to that has done DMI has got a lot of value out of
Okay,
it. Can
good,
you
good.
can you just start with what DMI is and kind of the basics and then go from
Yeah,
there?
so DMI, right, is dynamic movement intervention. Long story short, it's a sequence of movements. It's challenge to your posture, to your balance reactions to elicit an active response. I mean, it's kind of taking them through different planes of gravity to get some sort of active response. It's just getting them to move independently, basically, which sounds simple. But, and you take various levels for courses. I'm currently only level A and B certified. I'm taking C in October. But yeah, for Margo, we've been even though we're not quite there yet, we've been working on standing. We're working on her quadruped. Like I said, we're finally rolling, which we didn't really do any DMI for rolling. You can, but we didn't do that for her. And we're trying to work on that tall kneel posture where she's just up on her knees. So we've implemented that recently. And then I'm also certified in the TASIS method, which is a long term for E-stim, basically. So, and we just started that this week with her. So I've been putting electrical stimulation on her glutes, her hamstrings, and her core, and working through the same things sitting, quadruped, all those positions. And she's tolerated it really well. When we did it with her
So
earlier this week, she took a 3-hour nap, so it made her pretty tired, but I think we did it yesterday, and they said she was fine.
what does the e-stim do? Is that just to, like, help the proprioceptive input of those
Yeah,
muscles, or what
yeah,
exactly are you
you could
trying to.
use eSTEM for different reasons.
Mhm.
For some people, more in the orthopedic world, like you wanna stimulate a muscle contraction. For Margot, we're not going that strong. It's just light little pricklies like, "Hey, wake up, we're here, we're doing this." So that's all it is.
So it just helps her with the colloquial term would be, like, the mind-muscle connection between, like, what you're trying to make her feel
Mhm.
and yeah,
Yep.
okay, that makes a lot of
Yep.
sense, yeah.
When you do this action, I want these muscles to turn
Yeah.
on.
Yes, yeah. We have heard from I don't know if you listened to our episode with Susan Simmons, but her son Andrew has MCHS and he spells to communicate. And he has expressed, and also Susan has expressed that like he would have a hard time doing things. And then once he started to learn, like she could say like picking up a cup off the table, she could say like Andrew, use your bicep, and he'd be like, oh. okay, and then
Mhm,
he could do it.
mhm.
So a lot of it is just that proprioceptive input and actually being able to feel what you need to feel working, it
Yeah,
seems like.
yeah.
I feel like that's what DMI really does give. It really
Mhm,
Mhm,
does give input back to the brain and awareness of your body and space,
mhm,
and that's why it is successful, is and this is coming from somebody who's not certified in it, so I'm just saying that that's why I feel like it is good for the body, is because I think that it gives you awareness of your body in space and then
mhm,
confidence to use those muscles in your body in space.
mhm,
Yeah, and like Kacee said, just because Casey's working on standing doesn't mean we're necessarily like, "Oh, let's just skip crawling, and go to walking." We
mhm,
wouldn't do that. What she's working on is the tone in her muscles, her quadruped, like turning on her quads, turning on her hamstrings,
mm.
turning on those calf muscles, all the things,
Triceps.
and then putting her, like, down on the floor to crawl and working on other muscles as well.
Mhm,
yeah.
Like
Yeah, and I
Kacee.
mean, if you look at it sort of at from the aspect of a typical person, like movement is skill. Like we don't think about things like walking or crawling or whatever as skills because they're so we take them for granted because we've had them for so long. But if you think about like a sport, so what do you do? Like if you want to get better at basketball, you don't just play basketball all the time. You do drills that work on a specific aspect of the skill
mhm,
and help you hone that very specific part of it, and then you take that and you apply that, and then you go play the game,
mhm.
and then you acquire those skills that way. So
Right.
it seems a little bit weird to sort of apply those principles equally with uh a basketball player and a 1-year-old learning to walk, but it's sort of at a fundamental level the same thing.
Yep.
It's preparatory.
Yeah.
I really like how you said that. I might put that one in my back pocket when I'm explaining to parents. I mean, that's perfect. That's exactly
Mhm.
what we talk about,
Mhm,
and that leads into like the inch tone versus milestones. You don't get to crawling without the inch tones. You don't get to sitting without the inch tones. You don't. That's why we celebrate. We celebrate all the. Margo opening her hand. We were so excited about that. I mean, that's going to
Mhm.
open up the ability to grasp a toy and release a toy, hold my own ball, feel the world around me, like that kind of thing.
So what kind of things did you do to help her with that?
That's me. Well, as we were talking about like preparatory, I don't ever start a session without any type of sensory input because we got to get ready to regulate before the task. She's not going to want to work on grabbing a peg or grasping a ball, anything before we wake up that sensory system because as we said before, she's more on the lesser side of sensory processing. So we see a lot of kids that are seekers that are always running and jumping and they can't sit down or they can't sit still. That's because they are on the much more end versus she was on the less than. So we started off with brushing, the brushing intervention, which she really, really loved. She likes to like do the scratches and stuff, and that's giving her tactile input to her hands for her to be aware of where her hands are and how they can be used, right? So I'm brushing with deep pressure, and then she's finally grasping or scratching at the brush because she realized that if I move my hands, I will get that sensory input that I liked.
Mhm.
Versus when I do like a deep pressure proprioceptive rolling, we're still a little like, "Mm, I feel that and I'm going to use my hand to get away. I don't want it because I cannot tolerate that yet to an extent. There's so many different sensory systems that we're working at, even with her like moral reflex, with the auditory stimuli, like anything that she heard, she would jump or she would startle if something would open. And then mom and dad are like, hey, like she doesn't like startle at the dog barking anymore or like we're dropping stuff and she's just calm now because she has learned that those things happen in my environment and it's completely fine, it's completely normal, I don't have to be overly stressed about it. And then once we started going into like the sensory bins and the beans and the rice, she's like open close, they move around, there's something different in here that's softer, that's a puffball, like, so she's learning that things in her environment feel different, sound different, and all those different aspects.
So you're saying that in Margot's case, and again, that there's a huge amount of variability between people with MCHS that we found, but you're saying that she she was not sensory seeking, she was more avoiding sensory input, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
So we do like a questionnaire with parents, as well as our clinical observation. There's different levels. There's much less than others, and it's compared to same age peers, and then there's much more than others. So we're looking to get to the middle where it's just like the majority of others. And that is proprioceptive, tactile, so deep pressure, feeling, her vestibular, that's her favorite. She will grunt and whine until we put her on a swing. Or if we've
Mhm.
reached our threshold for a while in the session of grasping and manipulating, okay, you need a break. Do you want a swing break? You'll hear her calm. We'll go to the swing and she'll calm down for a while. You might even get her to do more things with her hands or spend more time on her tummy if she's on that swing where she feels most regulated.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Does she do a lot of stimming?
I don't know if I'd call it stimming necessarily.
Like hand flapping or like
Oh,
Leo really he'll rub his shirt like this a lot
yeah.
or
She
no, nothing like that?
No, if anything, she just gets, like, this extensor tone to her, and then she'll come out of it.
Mhm.
What do you mean by extensor
Like, she'll
tone? Like
kinda kick her
arching her
leg
back?
straight.
Okay.
Yeah, she does the back thing, she'll do extensor throws through
Yeah.
her back,
uh
but n no flap at least not yet, time will tell as she grows a little bit older into her toddler years, right now,
Yeah, I
more
was just
stimming.
curious because if she's not as sensory seeking, then it would make sense that she doesn't do as much stimming, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
again, there's a lot of I mean, Leo of course, this could be more the vestibular stuff too, but Leo would let me shoot him out of a cannon if I
Mm.
could. Like, he just wants deep pressure and to be tossed all over the place and stuff, so
Mhm.
it's just interesting the different aspects of this, but
Yeah, even from a PT like, I don't know about Lauren, but I couldn't even hardly use a toy with her because even just the lightest little rattle would, like, startle her
Mm,
and,
mm,
and then we're, like, back trying to regulate again.
mhm.
She's come so far from that. Now you can sometimes I'll put a Bennick vest on her, and when I would do the Velcro, she would, like, freak out, but now you could do it, she's good, so
Is a Bennick vest like a deep pressure thing?
yeah, it's a little different, both OTs and PTs, we both use it.
Mhm,
For me, I was using it more as a supportive measure, like just giving her muscles a little bit more input.
mhm.
So, yeah, I don't know if Tyler, if you've tried it with her or
I have not tried the vest with her, but I can see how it would give her proprioceptive
Mhm.
input, which we have started doing joint compressions a lot more as well, which is that deep proprioceptive
Mhm,
input.
mhm.
And I can see a decrease in like that reflex.
Yep.
And then we'll be able to do something functional. So when I give her joint compressions, and then I'll try and do some passive, like reaching with her arms. And she's less likely to snatch her arms away as a reflex when I do the joint compressions first.
Gotcha. So you guys it seems like all of her therapies, you're alternating between things that give her that proprioceptive input and then having her do, like, an actual like you said, like a I hate the term functional movement because it means, like, whatever, you know what I mean? But for lack of a better word, a functional movement.
Mhm.
Or purposeful.
Yeah, purposeful.
Purposeful, yes, that's a very good word
Yeah.
for it. Gotcha. Can you, Tyler, talk a little bit about the visual aspects with Margo?
Yeah. So when we started, her visual tracking was not when I started with her, it was she would find something for a while, and then once it goes past, like, midline or in a different direction, her eyes would lose the focus. So, a part of that visual tracking is strengthening those muscles in her eyes. So, to the point where even if she's tracking something and she loses it, I will go back where she lost it, and then we'll keep going from there.
But this could also be her head control as well. This
Yeah, it
one
could
where we
strengthen
kinda
her head.
mhm,
Mhm.
where
All of that, if it's weak, then we can't sustain. It's like an endurance thing. So I was doing it for a while, and then the muscles got weak and I lost it. And then I will help you remember where you were so we don't miss out on the rest of the muscles, right? So we're still doing the full range. And now she is so fast with the visual tracking now. It's amazing.
Did that open up a lot of the other stuff for her? Like, once she started visual tracking well, did you see the rest of the stuff kinda progress?
And another good point with that visual tracking is we typically stay within our open gym area because of her just appointment time and availability. And I will watch her visually track the swing. And I'm like, I know you want to go to the swing, but we're working here. We're working
Mhm.
on this right now. I'm like, we might have to turn around because you're searching for the swing. You're telling me what you want to do. You're communicating that need. However, we're still going to have to regulate through the task demand that I'm placing because we get to do both what you want and what you need.
Yeah. Yeah, that make I was yeah, I mean, she's only 1, but, like, eventually you are going to have to work the opposite way of, like, getting her to not pay attention to the swing when it's appropriate to not pay attention, because that's kinda the thing we're running into with Leo now is he has a hard time not paying attention to things to do the things that he needs to do, which, he's, 2 and however many months, so but yeah.
Yeah. They start to learn that autonomy and they're
Mhm.
like, what about what I want? Like,
Right.
I'm not really focused on what you want.
Yeah.
But too,
Yeah, the other night, Haley went to put him to bed. And he can't walk, but he can hold your hands and walk with your assistance and take you to what he wants, and, I mean, he stood her up half a dozen times and, like, walked to his room and walked to the toy bin, and it's funny how as they start to develop that, like, if he was a typical 2-year-old, it would be like, "Good lord," like, "Bedtime's a pain in the butt tonight," but it was it was actually kind of fun to watch him being a little turd, you know what I mean? We couldn't let him get away with it, but it really changes your perspective.
Is he
The
your
other
only
thing I wanted
child?
what's that?
Is he your only child?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention relative to earlier you talked about endurance, there is some evidence I need to dig more into this, but I saw at least one paper that shows that in mice, so you guys will appreciate this because you're all professionals. So they knocked out MEF2C in the gastroc of mice. And as you guys all know, for our audience, MEF2C gastroc is almost entirely slow twitch muscle fiber. And when they knocked out that MEF2C gene, it converted almost entirely to fast twitch muscle fiber, which would in turn theoretically affect muscle endurance. So, obviously it was only the one paper I found that was in mice, but it was just interesting how that might have an effect on the endurance. And it kind of lines up with a lot of what people see colloquially with kids who are MC because like Leo is strong and he can be explosive, but he can't be precise and he can't sustain movement for very long at all.
it almost makes you wonder what's happening in the heart
Yeah.
with all that as well, because our heart's a muscle. So I just wonder, that just it's interesting.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I know with Med2C and cardiac, there's a lot of need for cardiologists or a referral for those kiddos.
Mhm.
Just something that most parents need to know, that
Yeah.
if this comes up, watch
Mhm.
this.
And
Right.
I think it's like also important to know any kid with any delay that we see needs breaks. They don't have the endurance to do the full hour of therapeutic activities.
Mhm.
So when I started with Margo, I think we were taking at least 2 to 3 swing breaks.
Mhm.
Now we can either have a day where we need one right in the middle, or we do all our work and earn our nice little swing break at the end of the
Mhm.
hour. She was not lasting an hour of therapy when I started with her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and a
and
lot
that
of do OTP.
go ahead, sorry, Lauren.
Oh, sorry. A lot of times we'll do OT-PT back to back. And a lot of kiddos, they'll see OT, they'll see PT, then they see speech therapist, and then they go back home. Because, that gets them ready for school. That's the good part about, what we do. This is precursors to school and getting you ready for all those purposeful movements. But Margot, really just needed OT for one day and then PT another day. God bless her parents because that is hard. I'm sure you and Haley can, that sits at home for you guys, but going to therapy appointments and basically living at your therapy clinic every single day of the week is tough. We got her some house shoes so that she could wear
Oh,
them
yeah. I was like,
in our
as soon as
therapy
she
clinic.
got the diagnosis, like, okay, I'm gonna go buy you some slippers because we don't wear shoes here. So you always have to take our shoes off when we come in. But if you're gonna spend so much time here, you might as well be comfortable. I'm gonna get you some slippers. And we're gonna hang out.
Yeah, I think what you said about breaks, Tyler, goes back to again treating movement as a skill. Because again, in case you can't tell, I do competitive strongman, which I say is a terrible name for the sport because it implies that I'm strong. But the reason I say that is like I've studied sort of this sort of exercise science aspect of things a lot, and I see a lot of things from that that are applicable to this because again, like you wouldn't if you were trying to teach a young person a skill, you wouldn't make them do it for an hour straight with no breaks. You would work on it intensely for a little while, you would give them a little rest, and then also the physical aspect of it, like, you wouldn't go to the gym and, I mean, I guess if you were, like, running or something, but if you were lifting weights, you wouldn't just pick up the dumbbells and press them for an hour straight and then go home.
Yeah.
Like, there's a
Rest
you
breaks,
need to
muscle
work those breaks
picking.
in and yeah,
Yeah.
be a little more precise about it.
I
Good, you'll
mean,
hurt tomorrow.
even when I think about like going to the gym, I love going to the gym. I love lifting weights. One, I take breaks because I need my muscles to like reset. But two,
Mhm.
my attention isn't
Yes.
always there to keep going. I might pick
Mhm.
up my phone, I might pick up my water, I might be people watching. That's the same thing with them. Is we can't expect them to attend to therapy activities for the entire time that they're with us.
Right, yeah.
Although there is this whole concept, I also do intensives,
Mm.
where it's 2 to 3 hours at a time. We're hoping to build her up to that, sooner rather than later. But even with intensives, like there's still breaks. Usually in the middle, we do at least a 30-minute break just to kind of reset, have a snack, do whatever you needed to do. So
You're
yeah.
with us.
Yeah, and I would imagine if you're gonna do an intensive, there's some preparatory work leading up to that, and that it only lasts, like, a few weeks or whatever. You're not going at that pace all
Yeah.
the time, so let's see, we talked about DMI. What do you guys think the value was of you being able to start treating Margo so early?
I would have loved to have had her. So there's, significant amount of evidence. If you are really an evidence-based guy, I would look into the effects of early intervention. I mean, there's a reason why our state programs fund this. Early intervention is heavily evidence-based backed. The quicker we can get in there, more educated families become, the more
They're more
we can put
neuroplastic.
yeah, neuroplasticity starts forming, but just really just education too for families. I mean, I see a lot, and this is just not me hounding parents or anything like that, but I see a lot of parents and families that come in and they're like, oh, well, we have this diagnosis, so this is where we're at. And I'm like, no, 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 we can do more. We can do more than throw this toy to the side and be sassy. We have expectations and things like that. We can help guide families in the correct manner to that. Early intervention is where it's at. Quicker, the sooner. And I will tell you that the thing is that, and I'll get on my soapbox, so I'll try not to, but the thing is, I have never met or evaluated a kid that the mom didn't have a traumatic birth history. I've never met anybody that needed therapy that something also didn't happen to mom during that birth, whether it be in the 40 weeks, whether it be an early kid, whether it be NICU time. There are lots of things in evidence base that says, hey, if you have some type of trauma during your birth, look into early intervention. It would be only good for the parent and for the child. And that's the best thing about PT. We're not gonna hurt you, you know. Worst case scenario, you're a little
Well,
sore.
depends on your definition of hurt, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's occurring to me listening to you talk, that the early intervention is also important for the parents because they can meet people like you who have seen a lot of kids like this. Because it can be really, really scary. I mean, we got really lucky because we had an excellent geneticist who, like, did a really good job of, like, not sugarcoating it, but not also making it seem like doom and gloom, and he was like, "This is what we know, that this is the resources I can provide. This is going to be your guys' journey to go on. And here you go." But a lot of people, they get this diagnosis and they're like, yeah, your kid will never walk. Your kid will never talk, all this other stuff. And meeting people like you guys sooner rather than later can really help kind of set their expectations appropriately. I think so.
When it's hard too, like
Holds a lot of value for the parents.
some parents are like, "Oh my god, I have this kid with special needs. Like, what do I do?" It's like it's like, they don't all of a sudden something happens in the brain and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like my child can't sit, my child can't crawl," whereas you have a
Mm,
typical child, you're like, "Oh, let's do this. We got to get you walking." But then you have a special needs child, and all of a sudden you're going through like this grief and this trauma, and then your brain like shuts down. Like, I don't know how to deal with this. So that's where we kind of gently too kind of come in, and we can do this. This is what we're gonna do. So
Work on this at home. This is we give a lot of people, and I know Casey's probably the same way as me. I maximum give you 2 exercises to do at home. These are the two things that I want you to work on because I'm not going to give you a slew of things. You can sit in on our session and watch whatever you want to watch, but I'm not going to give you. I wouldn't do that. I would be overwhelmed and then I would just quit. Yeah, I'm not doing that. So
Yeah, that's an excellent approach because I know that, like, all our therapists are great, but there is this thing of sometimes they're like, "Well, all you gotta do is this." And it's like, "Really? That's all we've gotta do on top of everything
yeah.
else?" And also you're a trained therapist. This is a lot easier for you to help him do this than for us to help him do this. So, like, to get to get Leo to walk, he loves to play because I keep my hair really short most of the time, and he just loves to play with the top of my head, so I have to he stands with his butt against the recliner. I have to get on all fours and shake my head at him, and then I have to crawl away fast enough that he can't catch me, and he chases me across the floor, and, then when he catches me, I flip him up over my head onto my back, and I crawl back to the recliner and plop him down again, so, like, I can't do that for you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's just not the same as a therapist,
Well, and
but
it's hard too, like I have a lot of parents tell me the same thing. Like, I don't know how to do that. When I try it,
Mhm,
it doesn't work. And Camilla, she's the same way. I showed her some things and she's like, yeah, whenever I try it, I can't do it. But she's like, but then, Jedediah, her husband, she's like, he'll try it and he does a little bit better. But I always tell Camilla, I'm like, Camilla, I'm proud of you for trying, but don't mess up your relationship with your daughter, right? You're mommy. Let us be therapists. Like, of course, do your homework. I'm not saying don't work with her at home, but yeah, I mean, we get that all the time. This doesn't work for us. The kids,
uh
messing up my relationship with my kid, and
and I always tell them what a privilege it is to be back. I love those kids. So
Mhm.
what a privilege it is to get to be the bad one, what you're making me do hard things. I know, because
Yeah.
you can.
mhm.
You can do hard things. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do hard things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd be interested to see how you approach this because, like, the therapists give us exercises too, and they're like, "You do this and this and this and this and this." It's like, "Okay, do I do that for 3 sets of 30 seconds? Do I do this for 4 hours a day?" Like, even if you, because again, I'm a meathead, like, even if you just make up like, do this 3 times a day for a minute, even if it doesn't that's just completely arbitrary,
Mhm.
it gives me guardrails, because otherwise, like, I know Haley struggles with, like, she feels guilty if she's not working with him all the time, you know what I mean? And it's like, "Oh, we've gotta work on this and this and this," and it's like,
Mhm.
there's just but having those parameters, then that sort of sets the stage to help the family, like, mark down some wins, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I accomplished this thing today," and that can kinda help get the ball rolling that way, so
This might be different for Tracy and Tyler, but I always tell I and this is just from personal experience. There's no evidence behind this. I tell my families say 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be consecutive, but 20 minutes a day. So 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here of therapeutic play. That doesn't mean 5 minutes we're working on a standing pass. That doesn't mean 5 minutes we're working on something on our in tall kneel and then 5 minutes here. I just therapeutic play. Therapeutic play is a broad term. And if you can do 20 minutes, I've found that if you can do 20 minutes of therapeutic play every day, you are getting neuroplasticity. You're
Mhm.
getting positive results, and their carryover is evident. So, my families that really adhere to that and do that, and I know Camilla and I do. So, they have, I've seen progress in those kids. And I'll tell you, your therapist can tell when you don't
Mhm.
do your exercises.
Or at least when you don't try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't tried because, like, when Lauren's saying therapeutic play, from an OT standpoint, we learned that play is an occupation. I mean, occupational therapy, play is their occupation. It's their job. It's how they learn. So anything you want to do to build their skill, you got to do it in their world.
Mhm.
You got to do it in some way that they're going to love.
Mhm.
So let's say Margo is actively always working on her core strength, but she loves to bounce on the physio ball. She loves the input that the physio ball gives her. And that is challenging her core every time she's doing it.
Mhm.
And they might not think like, oh, I didn't make her sit by herself for X amount of times, this many times a day. I'm like, did you rock her a little bit and hope that she like used that core a little bit? You did it. You did the homework.
And that's what I do. That's what I tell Camilla too. I'm like, you don't have to sit here and do 10 sit to stands with her, or roll her 50 times back and forth. Like, take her to the park and put her in the little infant swing. Like, that's her play, that's her environment, but she's still working on postural control. They took her out to eat and put her in a high chair and she was able to sit up. I think she said like maybe 2 minutes, but that's her natural environment. And it still worked for her. But I'm kind of bad. I don't tell families like here's a sheet of paper, do these 10 exercises and hope it
Doesn't
works
work.
out for them.
That
You
that's
know,
you
it's
know
just not
those
realistic.
those become trash in the floorboards of every car ride home. That's what I always say. I'm like, that's just not realistic.
So, can you guys, whoever wants to take this can you guys talk about a little more about the value of having an interdisciplinary approach and getting everybody on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge, I think especially too when they're infant age, a lot of what OT does and what we do for PT, it can really seem like it's the same thing or that it overlaps a lot but I think like the communication like Tyler, oh, no, I'm swinging her because I'm working on this whereas okay, I'm swinging her because I'm working on this, we all have our plan, we all have our set exercises we want to do, but it's all for the same goal, the same purpose.
Mhm.
And I think if you don't, and I think about it too, like we have all these specialists, right? That like we work with, but we don't actually work with them. And so you get this lack of communication, right? And neurologist said this, but oh, physio, or what is it? Physiatry said this, and there's no interdisciplinary in that aspect. And it just everybody's like, okay, well, what do we do then? Who do we listen to? So
And
Yeah,
it's
we
important
definitely
too.
overlap.
You go ahead, Colin. You go
Okay.
ahead with the overlap. Because I was just gonna say, like, sorry, you go ahead.
No, you
I got it in
okay.
here. It's in
What
here.
I was gonna say, we overlap a lot and like they're working on her getting into quadruped and I'm like, one, we're gonna spread those hands.
mhm.
So that's going to build her hand strength, but it's also gonna give her the calming proprioceptive input because weight bearing on her arms is going to level out her sensory system. So many people are winning right now. Or I want her to start her visual motor. I want her to start tracking. I want her to turn her head.
Mhm.
We're both working on so during their session, they're working on something that is gonna benefit my goal, and I'm working on something that's gonna benefit
We're
we're
benefiting
always
her
in a
goal.
we're sitting to work on our hands because they want functional, like, a good posture sitting, but I think that if we're in sitting rather than laying down, we're not fighting gravity to try and reach and grasp and stuff like that. So, it works for everybody.
And it goes back to, parents kind of get tired of telling the same story every single time. Well, in OT, we worked on this. In PT, we worked on this. In speech therapy, we worked on this. And every single session, these parents are having to retell their stories. If you can find a clinic home that the therapists talk to each other, they communicate well with each other and work together, I would urge you to go in that direction because that's something that we do at Wonder is we all talk to each other. I knew that I wanted Margo to be with Tyler. I was like, this is what we need. If we can get, and I knew that Margo needed to be with Kacee. I was like, Kacee has this extra special credential. This is where Margo needs to be. So those kind of things. And I could go specifically to those therapists and say, help me.
Mhm.
I'm seeing this. So we need to get on it.
Mhm.
Yeah, one of the first things that we said to Camilla was, "The best thing you did was build her team." We named the group chat, "This is Team Margo," and we're all talking to each other and communicating and just so appreciative of each other, like, "Oh, I'm so glad that you're doing that with her because that's gonna help during my session when we work on this." I mean, we're all in the same clinic, we're passing each other by, we get to see her multiple days. I'm like, "Is her PT session done? Like, can I get a hug? Can I hold her for a second?
Well, so
Or can I get some food?"
and then the other day, Camilla told me, she said, we were thinking about, I think she said that her family's in Utah. And so she was like, we're thinking that we had a thought about moving back there because we'll have our family support. But she said She doesn't wanna leave because of her team that she has right now. She said, "We're so supportive. We all work well together. We're doing what we do for Margo." So, that was
Yeah.
huge for her, for somebody to feel like they have nothing here in Georgia, but they're staying because of, what they have for their child. Was It hit me hard the other day when she said that. I said, "Well, if you're gonna leave, don't tell me because I don't wanna hear it."
Because I can't handle
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't have access to that, I would urge your therapist to communicate with whatever therapist you are. And even if you have to do the communicating part of it, like, hey, like I get OT over here at this clinic and I get PT over here at this clinic and speech in the north. But like if you can get all those therapists, like even in a group chat, talking to each other, most therapists have the
Mhm.
same heart we do. They care more about their kids and they care about themselves. So
And if you get a therapist that won't and you have the means to do so, get a different therapist.
yeah. Yeah.
Hey, I
Yeah.
tell families all the time they need to get a new pediatrician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't say that out loud. Don't tell anybody I said that.
We did.
Yeah.
That's where we started with
Yeah,
Margo.
Yeah.
that's exactly. I told her, I said, the first thing I said to her
Tomorrow.
when I met her, I said, "You need to get a new pediatrician." She went to my
Yeah.
pediatrician that I take my kids, and he got the ball rolling, and that's where she ended up with genetics, and so,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Her other pediatrician said, "Just set a glass of water in front of her and see what she does with it." She didn't have any head control. What are we doing?
Let's start her on solids. Let's try solids. She's 6 months or and up now.
We didn't
She
have
gets
Mm.
it.
Yeah.
Is that not a safety concern to you? Like, let's move on from him.
And I'll tell you, the best pediatricians are the ones that communicate with your therapist. I have sent Kaycee's pediatrician novels before at like 11 o'clock at night, and he'll respond. He'll respond to
Oh,
me.
he'll call me. He will call me if I'm like, "Doctor," if I leave him a message, or maybe I shouldn't say his name. If I leave him a message, I'm like, "Something's up with my son," whatever, he'll call, like, within 30 minutes, he'll shoot
Yeah.
me a call.
Well, this is not even about kids that are mine.
Oh,
The
yeah. This
biological
is my
children.
kids.
These are like my therapy
Yeah,
children who
he's
will
great.
send me. Yeah, and he's not the only one. Like I also have a gastro doctor that will do the same thing. There's lots of doctors out there that are good, and that's the positive part of living in America. You can choosy. So I would urge families to find your team
Mhm.
that is gonna do that for
Mm.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes with, insurance networks or whatever other just financial issues with whatever other complications, it can be difficult. But
Yeah.
if you have the means to do so, we've talked about this before on the show, but doctors, sort of as a concept, the idea of doctors, we should trust medical professionals,
Mhm.
but any one given individual is not some infallible oracle of medical information. You know what I mean? Like if you feel like they're not advocating on your behalf or listening to what you have to say or whatever, if the vibes just aren't right,
Mhm.
talk to them. And if they aren't willing to accommodate you in some way, find a different doctor if you can.
Mhm.
Trust your parent.
Yeah,
Do
that
you
was a
guys do you co-treat Margo at all?
Supposed to say
Okay, well, we'll just talk about that then. I'll
no,
edit that
no.
question out,
I
and
mean,
that'll be the
they're
end of it.
treated and I'm hanging out. What do
Yeah.
you mean? Like
Same
they're
Yeah.
here.
it's their session,
We
but
don't get
like,
paid for it.
as long as you
hey,
don't
can I
kill
just
Okay.
insurance, we're good. But,
Okay, yeah. We'll just keep that between all of us.
Well,
yeah,
But
they're
we
not
can
bad.
talk about it, like, as in a co-treatment standpoint, it would be beneficial for Margo to have co-treatment,
yeah.
and the thing about it is, too, we just don't get paid for it. So, like, if I'm in a session and Tyler comes over to me and she's like, "Hey, like, what because I only have 2 hands, right? 2 hands, 2 knees, and PTs are notorious for, like, using our whole bodies to do strange things. So, like, we try, but we can only do so much, and Tyler's brain and eyes see different than I do. So, like, she can come over and she's helping with the sensory, Margot's whining or something, and she puts her hands in still in quadruped, but in beads. And I'm like, "What? Who thought of that?"
Yeah.
Who thought of that? But then Margo is no longer upset, and Tyler did that, but Tyler can't get paid to have 2 therapists at the same time
It's so
because
unfortunate.
insurance won't pay. Unfortunately, it's a battle we're still battling.
Yep.
And even when we get kickback from, insurance companies on, frequency, how many times we're recommending, it's just it's sad, nowadays we spend hours typing up an 8 to 9 page plan of care, telling you about this kid, telling you what they're going through. And basically, we have to use the power of the pen to tell insurance companies this kid's going through in their family. And then they turn around and they say, well, you can see them, 4 times in 6 months. What's that going to do? And I think it was a podcast you guys did with somebody that was in Canada, and they were only getting 1 time a month. And that kind of broke my heart a little bit because I just know I can envision what these kiddos look like, see, and I just know the importance of early intervention. And like Kacee said, it's important for you to get to go home and be mom and dad, right? So let us be the therapist. That's why I think increased frequency is important. But sometimes the insurance they yell at us, and then we have to fight harder. And the insurance companies, the people that are reading our 8-9 page document, which is fine, but they didn't go to PT school.
No.
You didn't get a degree in this.
No.
So how are you gonna tell me how often I should treat this child? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I mean, the whole system's so jacked up. Insurance, your insurance for your car, you don't use your insurance when you get an oil change. You just get your oil change. And then if you get in an accident, you total your car, that's where your insurance comes in. So health insurance, in my opinion, and sort of the way it was originally intended, should cover the big things. If you fall out of a tree and break your head or whatever. But the insurance shouldn't even be involved in things like this. And it would probably be much more affordable, and people would be able to pay for it out of pocket if the insurance companies weren't involved in these things to begin with. So
There is cash-based therapy. It's just
oh
expensive.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And
you're talking about giving up your kidney.
right. Yes. And I've heard people say before that people who have the means, again, so we don't wanna make anybody feel guilty for their financial situation or whatever, but cash-based therapy is usually better because they're not beholden to the insurance system.
Yeah.
Because I've had things where you're I've got hip pain and it's actually my low back SI joint, but because the referral was made for hip pain, now we're in this real pickle and we have to do all these things to treat the thing that's really bothering you, even though you know what I mean? Because the insurance said it was your hip. So it's just really jacked up. But I feel like we're just all yelling at each other at this point. So
Yeah.
I know it's sad, and I really hope better for our future generations. That's what I really want to, let Leo and them change the game for them.
yeah, absolutely. So are there any other contextual factors that you guys want to touch on, relative to treatment?
I'm thinking so, how treatment is not linear. So, a skill that we might have seen on Monday that she didn't do on Wednesday is not just based off of her physical ability, right? Whenever I open the door tomorrow, I say, "How'd you sleep?" I gotta know. I gotta know how you slept, so I know what to expect and how much you might be able to handle today. Also, one day she was super fussy, and we realized she was constipated, and she didn't. Why would you want to mess with your hands today? And you got stuck on your stomach. There are a lot of different factors to how anybody performs throughout the day. We get hangry. We get a flat tire, someone hurts our feelings, and then maybe we didn't do our best at work that day. But it doesn't mean that the next time you come, you're not gonna come out of pocket with a whole new skill. She will have maybe one off day and then 2 days where she's just doing all these new
Which is
things.
good.
So that's just always something to consider is if the session didn't go the way you wanted to, or you felt like there wasn't a big win at that session, always think what else was involved. Was mom the one who usually brings, and now dad had to bring this one time, and the vibes are different. Routine, habits, structure, all these things goes into how we perform on a daily basis.
Yeah, and you have to look at it over broader timescales than session to session too. If you haven't changed, nothing's changed in a year of therapy sessions, then yeah, maybe there's something going on. But your therapy session might be worse than last week, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was 3 months ago. So you're still making progress. And it seems like people with MCHS have a lot of, and it probably has to do with the neuronal pruning, and they have a hard time building synapses and also breaking down old ones, or neurons, excuse me, not synapses. So takes them longer to acquire new skills, but Leo, we see a lot of regressions with Leo before a skill really sort of sets in, and that's not uncommon from what we've heard.
Mhm.
So, it's our experience that like I said, he was taking steps today. He was doing that probably 3 or 4 months ago, and then he quit until a few weeks ago, and then he started again. So,
Did you see
things
something
like
else
that happen.
developing in that time while he wasn't taking steps? Like speech-wise or anything like that?
He still doesn't he can pretty much say mama, and that's like his word for everything.
Mhm.
I would say that just sort of his, like, general personality developed a lot more
Mhm.
during that time, and I think that probably has to do with visual tracking, like what Tyler was talking about earlier, like, he's able to interact with his environment more, and we perceive that as personality because he's being more social.
Mhm.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
um, that's not something that's uncommon in MCHS from what we've heard is regressions and progressions, but,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah.
feel like that's common in a
Yeah.
lot of kids, to
Yeah,
be
and
honest.
typical development, it can definitely that's why I asked, like, if you'll see kids, like, working on some sort of gross motor skill, and then all of a sudden parents say the same thing, "My kid's not really doing it anymore." But then, they'll see a boom in something else, whether it's their sensory regulation, their talking, feeding, whatever, and then it all kinda catches back up. It's like, this back and forth race between all the systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, even with Margo, there was, like, a period of time where her sleep quality kinda decreased, like, she wasn't sleeping through the night or she wasn't sleeping well. She was in there rolling in the bed, and then she was getting stuck on her tummy, and she was getting upset. "But you just had a new gross motor skill, huh?"
Yeah.
You figured out you could roll.
Yeah, and now you're
Mhm.
not sleeping because 'cause you're over here rolling back and forth instead of going to bed.
Yes, exactly. Or like a fun behavior will come out.
Yeah, so fun.
And we have found too that Leo will, like, stay pretty stagnant for a period of time, and then he'll gain a bunch of new stuff
Mhm.
at once,
Mhm.
which we've heard mixed experiences about that, where some people are just really, really, really gradual over time, but some people are like Leo, that's what you might call a punctuated equilibrium, where it's just almost no change and then a bunch of change. But yeah, so I mean, it varies from kid to kid, so don't compare yourself to other people too much, but at the same time, know that you're not alone, I guess, which is kind of a contradiction, but I feel like you know what I mean, so.
Yeah, especially for sure coming from a therapist standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Progress is not linear. Like, I am so eager to reassess Margo. I haven't been seeing her for 6 months yet, so she hasn't had 2 OT evaluations yet, and I'm just like, I just know I'm gonna be flipping the page, and we're gonna be on a different spot. She's gonna have all these new scores because even though I may not have seen it these last 2 weeks, February to August, I'm excited to see what it was.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
I just did Margot for assessment before I left. And she was from so initially we were on like the 1 month level. And then now the last one, I think it was 4 to 5 months. That's what she was functioning at.
Mhm.
So like we gained 4 to 5 months of gross motor skills and true skills, too. Like I feel like she's really doing them appropriately, learning the motor movements, motor pathways very well. I think in one of your podcasts, I heard somebody say, like, are we just going to all these therapy appointments? And I feel like some parents can resonate with this. Are we going to all these therapy appointments and my kid would just do this on their own? Like what are we doing? And I feel like as a therapist, it's always our job to heavily advocate for what we do, but also advocate for the kids. And I feel like I always want to ask parents that feel like that, I want to say, well, do you feel like you know as much as you knew back when you started therapy? Do you feel like you would have been looking for the same things? Do you feel like you would be pushing your kid to do this exact same thing right now? Or do you feel like you would have been like, why are you not walking? Why are you not crawling? I'm banging my head up against the wall. Like, what is happening? That's where our job comes into play.
Yeah, we had a conversation with someone who kind of had that realization not too long ago off air, where she said, like, I'm and she's a really smart, person. She said, "I I'm an amateur physical therapist, I'm an amateur occupational therapist," and she, like, got certifications and stuff, like, she really took it seriously, and she's like, "And what was" "it still doesn't seem like he's made the progress that I would like to see," and then she caught herself and she was like, "Well, I don't know where he'd be without it, so I guess I can't really say that." But also at the same time, I would say if you do need to take breaks occasionally, like, don't feel bad about that, like, I know you guys have only had Margo for a few months, but we've definitely talked to people who've said, like, you're pushing therapy so hard, and then, like, life circumstances, you have to take a month off or whatever, and you come back and they make a huge amount of progress
Mhm.
really quickly. And again, like, it's kind of almost like accumulated fatigue. Like, you know what I mean? Like they accumulate all this and they get sensitized to those stimuli. And then if you give them some time to just kind of relax and recuperate, and over that break, they become more sensitized to the therapy itself. And then maybe they can make a little more progress before they or when they do return. But I mean, I think burnout, for a lack of a better word, is what you're trying to avoid there.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's just like summer break with school. Why do we have
Right.
summer break to give kids? I mean, they talk about school year round since I was young, but it's yet to be a thing because that's why we have summer break. You need a break, but a couple weeks off, 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, 4 weeks off here and there is not gonna hurt. Like, every now and then, but I would definitely recommend like routine, consistency, follow through, carry over. Those are always my favorite words to use. Routine, because kids get used to routine, they know. I mean, one of my little kiddos, he knows Miss Lauren on Tuesday, Miss Lauren on Tuesday, Miss Lauren on Tuesday, and I'm like, "That's right, that's me." And now it's Miss Kacee on Tuesday.
Oh god, who is it?
Yeah, yeah. So,
So, what advice would you guys give someone who has just received MCHS diagnosis?
find a community, find a team, find people you can lean on that will listen to you in the hard times and listen to you and also celebrate the wins. I feel like it's a village. Find people, educate yourself. That's kind of my always my favorite go-to. It's educate, educate, educate.
Think from from, like a family or parental standpoint, I think my first advice was to Camilla was to take her time, right? Like take your time to grieve, take your time to do what you need to do, process this information. And when you're ready, like we're here.
Yeah, I mean, it was in the middle of one of our OT sessions that she got her genetic results and she got her diagnosis. And it was a big pause. I mean, I had Margo, didn't matter. I have her, we're together, it doesn't matter. Um, and Lauren will say that she knows me best. I don't like physical touch. If you're not a pediatric patient, I don't want to hug. But I embraced her. I held her, and I was like, I love you enough to want to hold you right now in this moment. And I'm like, I know that there are 5 minutes left in this session. I don't care. She's here, and she can swing. Win win. Go call your husband, go take the time you need, go to your car, go outside because we got you. Take the time that you need. Let me know that you make it home safe, and then we'll talk when you're ready.
Camilla had a village, and I really feel like that's just so important. From a PT standpoint,
Oh, there we go.
uh, from a PT standpoint, I feel like okay, go find a good physical therapist. Go find a good OT.
Okay, so this is a good question I just thought of. What advice would you give someone who is how would you evaluate therapists to try to find a good one?
Someone that
It's
listens.
tricky.
Yeah, it's a tricky question, but also an easy question all at once. Somebody that listens and is going to I always say, like, you might find somebody that's smarter than me, but you'll be hard pressed to find somebody that cares more than I do. I will spend the hours at nighttime researching. I will call whoever I need to call. I'll do what I need to do to get the job done. And that is what I feel like separates the good therapist from like the lazy therapist. You don't want to find a lazy therapist. You want somebody that's gonna invest in you and invest in your family and treat more than just the child. That you're gonna treat the mom and dad. See the contextual factors, see the full picture. That's a good therapist. And that's what I strive to be. I want to be that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. Alrighty. Well, are there any subjects that I didn't touch on that you guys wanted to cover?
I think we nailed them all. Thanks for letting me get my TED talk about insurance out.
That's all right.
Hopefully, United Healthcare will listen to this.
Yeah, you would hope. I'm sure everybody at United subscribes to the F2C cast, so they'll be
They
hearing this
should.
very soon.
Dang, flap it.
Alrighty, guys. Well, we're gonna close this down. So thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. You guys are in the Atlanta area, right? So if there are any families in that area who want to seek you guys out at therapists, geez Louise, how could they get a hold of you?
But we've got our Wonder website, Wonder Therapeutic Services.
Okay.
I'm trying to be a little more active on social media. It's kinda hard for me because 'cause I'm not really good at it, but I've got an Instagram page that I just use just for my PT stuff.
Uh,
I do too. I haven't really beefed it up yet, but I am starting my OT Instagram page. Um, and that is just TD underscore
Oh, stop it,
TD
Tyler.
is the
Now I gotta
OT.
look up mine. Hold on.
Yeah, no, hold on. Let's
yep,
yeah,
take your
let me
time.
go ahead cut.
Yeah, you know what? I don't
You
like
know what?
social media. Like I said, I'm not very good at it, but when I started my page, like I've had people reach out to me like in New Jersey, like, "Hey, I'm looking for an intensive. Like, are you in New Jersey?" And I'm like, "No, I'm in Atlanta." Which always plays an issue because, not everybody can afford to travel and be in Atlanta for 3
Uh,
weeks or whatever. But I mean, it has been a great avenue. Mine is my name. It's Kacee underscore STEVENS underscore DPT.
gotcha.
And mine is TD underscore the OT.
Cool. Alrighty. Lauren, do you have anything you want to plug?
Oh, what? No, I'm out in Tennessee now, and
Boo.
in it, yeah, and I'm in NICU part time pediatric.
Gotcha. If there was anyone in your area who wanted to get in contact with you, could they?
Yeah, thanks West Tennessee Healthcare, and they can.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, it's corporate now, so I'm probably easier to find.
Alrighty. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. As always, our listeners want to get a hold of us, questions, concerns, contact us on Facebook or email us at mef2cast@gmail.com. Thanks again for your time, guys.